Okay, it looks like I am live in both groups. Welcome to this week's Q&A. I am talking about sugar today. That's been quite the theme for quite a while now. I will probably for the rest of this month too. So I'd love to hear your questions. Post in the comments, post ahead. You can always send me a DM if you want a personal question answered. And it doesn't have to be sugar. It can be anything you want that's health related. I love to hear from you, and I want to make sure the information suits you and serves you. Anyway, so first thing, before we can talk about blood sugar and whether or not we need to really know our numbers, which I'm proud of some of you. You've been posting pictures from your glucometer. I love to see your numbers. And so I think it's so important that we need to know it. But before we get into that, we need to know why. We need to know what is our blood sugar. So every time that we eat, we break our food down. Food is broken down into carbohydrates, and those are sugars, and then into glucose, into our sugar. And that is what is needed to go into all of our cells for energy. We have to have glucose for energy. And so we have to eat, and we have to eat to get the glucose to go into the cells to have energy and for all of our body processes. And so that's very important. And so we need to have those sugars moving through, but we can get them from a variety of different ways. Now, that being said, here in the US, most of us eat too many carbohydrates or too many calories, and all of that gets converted and elevates blood sugar. It interferes with insulin receptors so that we don't get the sugar into the cells. There's so many different things that can go wrong. And so that's why we need to know our numbers. Now, most people also don't know that they have problems with their blood sugar until they get diagnosed with something like diabetes, or their doctor tells them they have prediabetes, but they really don't really know the signs and the symptoms that tell them, hey, there's something going on. So what happens if we don't know our numbers? So one of the biggest things that we don't know is, even before we're diagnosed, you usually aren't diagnosed until after your A1C is over 5.7. What does that mean? So when we check our blood sugar using a glucometer, this is a glucometer here. This is my Lancet. I don't know what this is called. Maybe this is called the trigger. Anyway, I put in this little needle. I don't know if you can see that. And then I pull the trigger and I prick my finger, and then I put it on this little piece of paper that's inside my glucometer, and then a number pops up. And so that's what a lot of people have been posting the picture from their glucometer. And yours could be different. It could be bigger. It could be smaller. Or you could even be wearing a CGM, which goes on the back of your arm. Some of them go on the belly. And it doesn't go, it's not like a needle. It's these tiny little, almost like hairs that go into just the surface of your skin, and it can measure your blood sugar. It's amazing. So I've worn one. I wore one a couple of years ago. Was it 1 year or 2 years ago? Anyway, you usually wear it for 2 weeks. It automatically sends your numbers, called continuous glucose monitor, throughout the day for 14 days. And then you can see, am I stressed out? What happens to my blood sugar when I'm stressed out? What happens if I don't eat? What happens if I drink coffee? What happens if I eat blueberries? What happens if I eat carrots? What happens if I eat these starchy foods? What happens if I eat meat? What happens if I don't sleep? And so all of this information is gathered up from checking it on your arm. So it's much easier to wear when you wear a continuous glucose monitor than when you prick your finger, because you may not be pricking your finger when these other events are happening. So you don't realize stress. For me, stress is the biggest one. If I get a poor night's sleep, my numbers are way off. But if I'm only pricking my finger after my meals, then I don't know what happens unless I'm eating during a stressful time. I really don't know whether stress is affecting me. And so that's one of the reasons why we need to know our numbers. So our A1C, I've said this in a million videos, so I won't go into it. You can go back and review some of the other ones, but it measures your average glucose over the last 3 months. And so that is a great number to look at. Not how well am I managing my blood sugar right now in this moment, but how have I been managing it over the last 3 months? And when we go to the doctor, your doctor probably only checks your fasting glucose. So A, did you remember not to eat or drink anything before you came in? That's the first thing. B, were you stressed out when you got there? Was traffic bad when you got there? Did you have to wait too long to get your blood drawn? Are you nervous about having needles? So all of those things can affect your blood sugar, and that glucose is only one snapshot in time. So that's why it's great to look at the A1C, because it shows what your average has been over the last 3 months. So that is a really great number to know, as well as your fasting insulin. And I talked about these last week. But it's so important to know because in the doctor's office, we're not diagnosed with a problem until it gets over 5.7, but we get symptoms, we get signs, and we even get irreversible damage before 5.7, mainly with the eyes. So you can have permanent eye damage before your blood sugar gets that high. And so when it starts to get elevated, if it's above 5.0, you need to start managing it. And what do I mean by managing it? I mean bringing it down, looking at what you're eating, looking at your lifestyle, making sure you're sleeping, making sure you're not stressed out, and making sure you're looking at the foods. And so for me, looking at a glucose meter, a continuous glucose meter, for 2 weeks is a great way. I could just put one on every several months or once a year and just see how well am I managing my blood sugar right now. Or when you have your annual physical, ask your doctor to please run an A1C, or you can even order tests on Amazon to check your A1C. Now, I don't know how reliable those tests are, but I think it's really fabulous to know those numbers because you want to take action before you experience any permanent damage. Because a lot of times there's no symptoms. You don't really understand. Maybe you're not feeling so well. Maybe you're thirsty. Maybe your hormones have been off track. Maybe your thyroid hormones are off track. Your blood sugar affects everything, but we don't realize how those things are related. Kind of like gluten we've talked about before. People don't realize their pain is from gluten. They think, hey, I don't have diarrhea. I don't have a gluten problem. Well, the gluten can be related to your shoulder pain, to your hip pain, to your knee pain. It's inflammation somewhere in the body. The blood sugar, when your blood sugar is out of balance, it can affect your whole body. It could be your stubborn weight gain. It could be your problems with detoxification. It could be problems with infertility. It could be problems with menstrual cramps. It could be problems with moodiness and PMS. It could be problems with hot flashes. All of these things are related to blood sugar and more. And so it's so important to know your numbers so that you can take action because you are in control. You can actually do things to manage your own blood sugar. They used to tell people that when you are diagnosed with type 2 diabetes, that it's only going to get worse. You can manage it, but it's never going to go away. And that's not true. You can make changes to get your body back into balance. So, like I said, our hormones all interact. And we have to have the blood sugar in balance. So you have to have your blood sugar in balance to manage your hormones. You also have to manage your hormones to keep your blood sugar in balance. So if I'm all stressed out, I'm not managing my hormones, and my blood sugar is going to be out of control. And so there's a game that we have to play. We have to make sure all of them are in control. If we have high blood sugar, then we're going to have thyroid problems. Our thyroid hormone is going to slow everything down. We're not going to get the thyroid hormone into our cells. And then if you are not familiar with your thyroid, but your thyroid is called the master gland, and it is kind of like the engine. How fast are you going to go? How slow are you going to go? It's helps to manage your metabolism, also your body temperature. A lot of people who have their thyroid hormone out of balance, they're either running way too hot or they're running too cold. They feel sluggish. Sometimes they have body pains and things like that. Your thyroid really controls so much. So that's another thing. If your thyroid is out of control, your blood sugar is probably out of control, and the other way around. Your blood sugar is out of control, your thyroid is out of control. And so we have to make sure that they are in balance, and we need to make sure that everything is running smoothly together. So when we look at inflammation and sugar are huge. I know I talked about this last week. If you ever grew sugar crystals in science class, or you ate rock candy, you know how sharp those edges are. And so those sugar crystals, the sugar molecules, they have sharp edges. And so when we have too much blood sugar, too much sugar in our veins and our blood vessels, that is going to be causing damage all along the veins and the blood vessels. And what happens when we have damage to our skin? We get little tears. The same thing happens inside our blood vessels, and that creates inflammation. And so just like on your skin, you get a little cut on your hand, you get some redness, maybe some warmth. The same thing's happening on the inside. We just don't see it. We don't even feel it until we have some serious complications. And so that's another reason why we need to keep our blood sugar under control for inflammation. So it can cause pains and things as well. So how do you take charge of this? Well, number one, we have to look at everything, right? So I have been studying nutrition. I think I've figured out 26 years. So this is my 26th year studying nutrition. So I do consider myself an expert in nutrition. I've been studying every single year. I do continuing education classes in nutrition. And so I am an expert in nutrition. However, knowing all about the nutrition does not necessarily mean blood sugar is going to be imbalanced because, like I said, cortisol, which comes from comes from different organs, but it comes from stress, right? And so if we're stressed out, if we're not sleeping, if we are waking up and jumping out of the bed and taking off to do different things, our body's in an alarm state. If we're worried all day long, all of these different things can affect your blood sugar. If you don't get enough sleep at night, you're worried about work, you're stuck in traffic all day, and you don't give self time to calm down and relax. You don't take many breaks throughout the day. Think about how it would be if you lived out in nature, right? So we need food, shelter, and water. Let's say you have all of those things. What are you doing during the day? You're gathering food. It's hot, so you go and you rest. And those are things that we need to do here today. We have to take time out throughout the day. We can't just be go, 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 going, right? From the time we jump out of the bed with the alarm to the time we go to bed late at night after being on our phone. We have to take breaks. And that is one of the main things. So knowing the nutrition and not doing the lifestyle is not going to help you. You have to bring everything together. So what about exercise? So exercise is also very important, but it has to be the right balance of exercise. If you are training too hard and too often, that can also affect your blood sugar. And so you just like resting your body throughout the day, we have to rest our muscles throughout the day too. That's why when people do weightlifting, you don't do your biceps every single day. You give your body a rest. You give your biceps a rest. So sometimes people will do arms one day, they do legs the next day, they do back the next day. Is to rest those different body parts. And so this is the same with us. The same thing with training to run a marathon or triathlon or something like that. We can't go all out every day, all day long. We have to give ourselves time to relax that way. So back in my 20s, I used to ride my bike 10 miles every day, and I kept getting sick. I kept getting like flus and ear infections and all this, and I didn't know why. It's because I was doing that every single day, and that's too much wear and tear on your body. I'm type A personality, so when I go for it, I just put it all in and just do all the things. And so that's where I have been learning, and I'm still learning. So while I may be an expert in nutrition, I am not an expert in stress management. And I'm just beginning to be an expert in sleep. It took me a while to get the sleep down too, but I do know, I have always known that I am a 9-hour a night. If I don't get 9 hours of sleep, I am not going to be all there. And so some of us need more sleep than others. And learned that the hard way. I had a job where I had to be there at 5 a.m. and I was a monster. I need sleep. So I talked about stress. So hopefully this helped you. I showed you my glucose meter here. And so you can always get something like this at CVS or Walgreens, but sometimes you have to order all the different parts individually. So you need test strips that you put your blood on. I did another video where I show you how to do that. You need something to plug those strips into to give you your number. And then you need some kind of device with lancets where you can put in your little needle to inject into your finger, or you can get a continuous glucose monitor. Ideally, you can get your doctor to order one for you because your insurance will pay. But a lot of times doctors will not. If the doctors will say you're not diagnosed with diabetes, they won't let you have one. And so I do have a way for you to do that. I am an affiliate with Thea. They have doctors on staff that will help you get one. We are one of the only countries in the world that does not let people have them without a prescription. I don't know why, because it is so critical to know your numbers, and this is the easiest way to know. You may be jumping out of the bed with an alarm, and then when you check your blood sugar in the morning with your little glucose meter, your number's off the chart. Why? You just jumped out of the bed in an alarm state. You're all stressed out. And so this is going to help you know what was your blood sugar overnight while you were sleeping. And so this will give you a much better number. That and looking at your A1C. Anyway, I will put a link to Thea so you can order your own CGM, for those of you who are in the blood sugar workshop, make sure that you either order one of these. You can get it at your CVS or Walgreens, or order it on Amazon, or order a CGM to put on the back of your arm or your stomach. You'll just have to look at the brands to see where you can attach them. Now, when you order or purchase one of these, those test strips are pretty expensive. And so look at the price for replacement test strips before you choose one. Don't pick one that's going to just cost you way too much to get test strips later on. Check the price of the test strips before you order it. The CGM is expensive, but it's great information. And the more you get, the cheaper they are. And you'll see you do have to have a membership because you look at your app. And so like for me, mine, I want to say I spent $300, and I can't remember if I got 2 or 3 sensors. And so every couple of months in the next year, I can check it. And so for me, it's worth it just to make sure everything stays on track, because my numbers got too high. My numbers were absolutely perfect after I did create, and then I did create again when numbers were perfect. And then this summer I got too stressed out. I overdid it, not working on my stress management, right? And so my numbers went out of track. And so while they look good, but I'm going to wear my CGM for a couple of weeks just to make sure they stay good. And during my sugar workshop, I want to be able to demonstrate. And during Create, which is coming up soon, I want to show that as well. Anyway, I'd love for you to join us in our Unveiling the Sweet Truth workshop, which is September 30th. It's a 3-hour workshop where we're going to go through using these devices. We're going to go through explaining why. And so there's going to be a lot of hands-on, even though it's on Zoom, you're in the comfort of your own home. We're going to be doing things like exercises, stress management techniques. We're going to be eating different foods to see how they affect our body. We're going to have food demonstrations. You can cook along, or you can even purchase foods instead of making your own to eat and see different techniques to use. Anyway, I hope that you will join us. I will put a link in there for you to join us September 30th. It is noon to 3 Eastern time. And so I think that's 9 a.m. to noon Pacific time, because we have people on both coasts, and we have close to a dozen people, I think, in that workshop. We'd love to have a lot more because it's such valuable information. I hope that you will join us. If you have any questions, make sure you post in the comment or send me a DM. Y'all know I love to hear from you, and I want to make sure that this time is valuable for you. So have a fabulous week. I'll talk to you soon.